Have you felt it lately? That subtle but unmistakable whisper growing steadily into a voice you can no longer ignore? That knowing that seems to precede your thoughts, arriving before your analytical mind has time to process what's happening? This is not your imagination playing tricks. This is not wishful thinking disguised as insight. This is your intuition, growing louder in a world that's becoming increasingly chaotic, speaking to you with an urgency that feels almost physical, a stirring in your chest, a quickening of your breath, a sensation that pulls you toward or away from certain paths before you've had time to consider them rationally. Perhaps you've been dismissing these signals, attributing them to anxiety or random neural firings in an overworked brain. Perhaps you've been trying to strengthen this intuitive sense through meditation, visualization exercises, journaling, or any number of spiritual practices that promise to enhance your connection to your higher wisdom. And yet, something still feels incomplete, as if the true mechanism behind intuition remains hidden behind a veil your conscious mind cannot penetrate. There's a reason for this disconnect, a scientific explanation for why your intuition seems both profoundly personal and mysteriously universal at the same time. What if I told you that your intuition is not merely a product of your personal experiences, accumulated wisdom, or evolutionary instincts designed to protect you from danger? What if your intuition is actually a direct communication channel with the quantum field itself, the vast ocean of potential from which all physical reality emerges? Look around you for a moment. Notice how light doesn't struggle to illuminate darkness. It simply exists, and by its very nature, darkness cannot remain in its presence. This natural phenomenon mirrors the first secret of amplified intuition that most seekers miss. True intuitive awakening isn't achieved through forcing, striving, or conquering the mind's resistance. It emerges through allowing yourself to become a clearer channel for information that's already trying to reach you from the field of infinite possibilities. The quantum physics that governs the subatomic world reveals a startling truth that ancient wisdom traditions have always known. Reality isn't a solid, predetermined structure through which you navigate your life. It's a responsive field of potentiality that crystallizes in response to your attention, intention, and most importantly, the vibrational frequency you maintain in your being. When your intuition seems blocked or unreliable, it's not because you lack the innate ability to access this deeper knowing. It's because layers of conditioned thinking, limiting beliefs, and unprocessed emotions have created static in your receptive field. It's like trying to tune into a clear radio station while driving through a tunnel. The signal is still broadcasting perfectly, but your ability to receive it has been temporarily compromised by interference. Have you noticed how some people seem naturally intuitive, making decisions with a confidence that bypasses doubt, while others remain chronically uncertain, second-guessing every internal prompting no matter how clearly it presents itself? The difference isn't in the intensity of their intuitive signals or some special psychic gift they were born with. The difference lies in their receptivity, their willingness to honor the space between analytical thinking and intuitive knowing, without needing to immediately filter every insight through the restrictive lens of what seems logically possible. Research in the field of neurocardiology has revealed something extraordinary about this process. Your heart contains an intricate network of neurons that function as a little brain, capable of sending more signals to your cranial brain than it receives. This heart brain doesn't process information through logical analysis. It communicates through feelings, through resonance, through a direct energetic connection to the quantum field. When you feel that gut instinct or heart knowing, you're experiencing your body's electromagnetic field interfacing directly with the informational substrate of reality itself. This isn't mystical thinking cloaked in scientific language. It's cutting-edge science confirming what mystics have been teaching for millennia. Your body is not merely a biological machine processing sensory data. It's a sophisticated quantum antenna, constantly receiving and transmitting information beyond the limits of space and time as we conventionally understand them. The intuitive insights that seem to arrive out of nowhere are actually drawn from this vast field of information that exists outside the constraints of your individual experience. This explains why intuition often presents solutions you couldn't have logically deduced from your existing knowledge, why it sometimes shows you the shortest path through a problem you've been struggling with for months, and why it occasionally warns you away from situations that seem perfectly fine on the surface, but later reveal hidden dangers. The most limiting misconception about developing stronger intuition is that it requires adding something to yourself, more techniques, more practices, more knowledge. The truth is both simpler and more challenging. Enhanced intuition emerges not from acquisition, but from removal, the gradual dissolution of the barriers you've unconsciously erected between your conscious awareness and the quantum field of infinite intelligence that surrounds and interpenetrates every aspect of your being. This is the first crucial inversion of understanding. Intuition isn't something you develop. It's something you uncover by removing the interference. There exists a threshold moment in the awakening of intuition that few discuss, yet everyone experiences. That disorienting space where you can no longer fully trust your old way of navigating reality through purely logical means, but don't yet completely trust the intuitive promptings that are becoming increasingly difficult to ignore. This liminal zone can feel like standing between worlds, no longer able to return to the comfortable limitations of your previous perspective, but not yet firmly established in a new way of being. The mistake most make in this crucial transition phase is attempting to accelerate through this discomfort, seeking certainty before the natural alchemical process has completed itself. Our educational systems and cultural programming have conditioned us to value intellectual certainty above all else. We've been taught that knowledge comes primarily through linear reasoning, careful analysis, and the methodical accumulation of facts. This deeply ingrained pattern creates the first and most significant barrier to intuitive clarity, the need to understand before you can trust. But quantum intuition operates through a fundamentally different mechanism. It doesn't build conclusions brick by brick through sequential reasoning. It receives complete insights holographically, often delivering solutions, warnings, or guidance in immediate, fully formed downloads that bypass the logical mind entirely. This is why intuitive insights frequently arrive during moments of mental quietude, during meditation while falling asleep upon waking in the shower, or during activities that occupy your analytical mind while leaving your intuitive channels open. The quantum field speaks most clearly when your attention isn't frantically searching for answers, but resting in receptive awareness. Consider how water behaves when disturbed versus when still. A churning, turbulent pond reflects nothing clearly, while a calm, undisturbed surface creates a perfect mirror for the world above. Your mind operates similarly when agitated by anxiety, excessive thinking, or emotional reactivity. Its reflective capacity diminishes. The intuitive signals still arrive, but they become distorted, fragmented, or completely obscured by the mind's activity. This is why practices that calm the mental waters, meditation, conscious breathing, immersion in nature, or any activity that induces flow states, naturally enhance intuitive clarity. They're not adding intuitive capacity. They're removing the conditions that prevent your natural intuitive function from operating at its optimal level. The deeper scientific understanding behind this phenomenon relates to coherence, the synchronized, harmonious operation of your neurological and electromagnetic systems. Research at the HeartMath Institute has demonstrated that when your heart rhythm, breathing pattern, and brain waves enter a state of coherence, your entire bodily system begins functioning with remarkable efficiency. In this coherent state, your intuitive reception becomes extraordinarily precise, allowing you to detect subtle signals from the quantum field that would otherwise be lost in the background noise of an incoherent system. This coherence represents the second key to amplified intuition. It's not about trying harder to hear the intuitive voice. It's about creating the internal conditions where that voice naturally becomes the loudest signal in your awareness. When you understand intuition as a quantum phenomenon rather than merely a psychological one, you recognize that your entire being functions as both receiver and transmitter, in constant communication with the field of all possibilities. Every thought, emotion, belief, and intention you hold creates ripples in this field, attracting resonant experiences and repelling dissonant ones. This is why the quality of your internal state matters so profoundly in the development of reliable intuition. Fear, doubt, excessive attachment to outcomes, and rigid expectations all create interference patterns that distort intuitive clarity. The quantum field responds not to your conscious desires but to your actual vibrational signature, the sum total of your conscious and unconscious patterns of thought, emotion, and belief. This explains why affirmations and visualization practices often fail to produce the intuitive breakthrough people seek. You might consciously affirm, "My intuition is clear and strong," while unconsciously vibrating doubt, skepticism, or fear of being misled by your own imagination. The quantum field doesn't respond to your words or conscious intentions. It responds to your actual frequency. This is why any genuine development of intuitive capacity must include shadow work, the willingness to illuminate and integrate the unconscious patterns that create static in your intuitive reception. The aspects of yourself you've rejected, suppressed, or disowned don't disappear. They continue operating below the threshold of conscious awareness, creating interference in your connection to intuitive wisdom. Each time you honor an intuitive prompting, each time you act on that subtle knowing despite logical uncertainty, you strengthen the neural and energetic pathways of intuitive reception. Conversely, each time you ignore or dismiss these promptings, you reinforce the pathways of doubt and disconnection. Your nervous system literally reshapes itself according to which signals you prioritize and act upon. This neuroplasticity is the physical manifestation of a profound spiritual truth. Attention is a transformative force. What you consistently attend to grows stronger in your experience, while what you ignore gradually fades from your awareness. If you're resonating with these insights, if you feel a recognition stirring within you as you absorb these words, I invite you to deepen your connection with our community. This channel exists as a gathering place for consciousness explorers like yourself, those who sense there's more to reality than the conventional narrative suggests, who feel called to expand beyond the limitations of purely materialistic thinking. By subscribing and joining our growing family of quantum observers, you're not just supporting the creation of more content like this. You're adding your unique frequency to a collective field of awakening consciousness. Share in the comments below one intuitive insight that proved accurate despite logical doubt. Your experience may be exactly what another viewer needs to hear to trust their own inner knowing. Now let's continue exploring the deeper dimensions of your intuitive capacity. The quantum field holds a paradoxical truth about intuitive development that challenges our conventional understanding of growth and learning. In the realm of intuition, trying harder often produces less result, while allowing more creates greater capacity. This inversion of the standard achievement formula frustrates many seekers who approach intuitive development with the same goal-oriented mindset they've applied successfully in other areas of life. When you understand the quantum mechanics behind intuition, this paradox resolves itself naturally. Intuition operates through resonance, not effort. Consider a tuning fork that, when struck, causes another tuning fork of the same frequency to vibrate spontaneously across the room without any physical contact between them. Your intuitive system functions similarly. It doesn't need to strive to receive information. It simply needs to maintain the vibrational state that naturally resonates with the information you seek. This explains why intuitive insights often arrive when you've stopped actively searching for answers and shifted your attention elsewhere. The moment of letting go creates the vibrational space where intuitive knowing can emerge without interference. The primary barrier to consistent intuitive clarity isn't lack of ability, but the presence of what quantum physicists might call observer interference. In quantum experiments, the act of observation itself changes the behavior of the particles being observed. Similarly, your conscious mind's insistence on analyzing, judging, and directing the intuitive process actually disrupts the very phenomenon it's trying to enhance. This is why the third key to amplified intuition involves developing what might be called passive alertness, a state of relaxed awareness that notices intuitive signals without immediately seizing them for analysis. Neuroscience reveals that this state corresponds to increased alpha wave activity in the brain, associated with relaxed alertness and increased coherence between the right and left hemispheres, allowing for more integrated processing of both analytical and intuitive information. Your intuitive capacity operates across three distinct but interconnected dimensions, each requiring its own form of attunement. The first dimension is bodily intuition, the visceral knowing that manifests as physical sensations. Tightness in the chest before making a poor decision, a feeling of expansion when considering an aligned path, or the famous gut feeling that warns or confirms without logical explanation. This somatic intuition speaks through the intelligence of your nervous system, which processes information far more rapidly than your conscious mind. The second dimension is emotional intuition, the feeling tone that accompanies potential choices or paths. This manifests as subtle shifts in your emotional state. Unexpected peace when contemplating a seemingly difficult option, inexplicable joy when considering a particular direction, or a sense of heaviness around choices that appear promising on the surface, but aren't aligned with your deeper truth. The third dimension is what might be called pure knowing, information that arrives fully formed in your awareness, without passing through analytical filters. This is the mysterious "I just know" quality of intuition that can't be traced to logical deduction or prior experience. This form of intuition often relates to potentials and possibilities that exist in the quantum field, but haven't yet manifested in physical reality. Developing reliable access to all three dimensions requires a fundamental shift in how you relate to the process of knowing itself. Western educational paradigms have trained us to trust only information that arrives through recognized channels, logical analysis, sensory observation, or authoritative sources. Information that arrives through intuitive channels is often dismissed as subjective, unreliable, or imaginary. Yet quantum physics suggests that the division between objective and subjective may be far less rigid than we've been taught to believe. The observer effect in quantum mechanics demonstrates that consciousness itself plays a role in determining what aspect of potential reality becomes actualized. Your intuition may be providing accurate information, not because it's somehow seeing the future, but because it's detecting probability waves in the quantum field before they collapse into particular experiences in your physical reality. This understanding transforms intuition from a mysterious sixth sense into a natural function of your consciousness as it interfaces with the quantum nature of reality. Perhaps the most limiting belief about intuition is that it represents some special gift, possessed by a fortunate few rather than an innate capacity available to every human being. This belief creates an immediate vibrational barrier to intuitive development. You cannot manifest capabilities you believe are fundamentally unavailable to you. The truth is that intuition is your birthright as a conscious being. Every human is born with this capacity fully intact. Watch any young child before cultural conditioning begins to override their natural knowing. They respond to energetic information with remarkable accuracy, gravitating toward what supports their well-being and moving away from what doesn't, often before any visible signs confirm their response. What we call developing intuition is actually a process of reclaiming what was always yours, removing the layers of conditioning that taught you to distrust your direct knowing in favor of external authority or rigid logical processes. The quantum field doesn't withhold information from some while revealing it to others. It responds with perfect precision to each individual's vibrational request. If your request is clouded by doubt, fear, or the need for certainty before action, the field faithfully reflects this ambivalence in the form of unclear or inconsistent intuitive signals. The field doesn't judge this as good or bad. It simply responds to what is with perfect accuracy. This understanding liberates you from the frustration of comparing your intuitive capacity to others. The only relevant measure is your own expansion, the gradual clarification of your intuitive channels through consistent attention and response to the signals you receive, regardless of how subtle they may be initially. There exists a space of profound transition in the development of quantum intuition that few guides adequately prepare you for, the disorienting interval between trusting external validation and trusting your own direct knowing. This space feels like standing between worlds with no solid ground beneath your feet. The old reliable sources of certainty no longer satisfy, yet your intuitive knowing hasn't yet developed the consistency that allows complete surrender to its guidance. I call this the intuitive void, the challenging but enormously fertile space where your old relationship with reality dissolves to make way for a fundamentally new way of knowing. Most people flee this void at the first experience of its uncertainty. They rush back to the familiar comfort of external validation, analytical overthinking, or the false security of believing they can control outcomes through sheer force of will. Yet it's precisely in this void, this apparent emptiness, that your quantum intuition develops its deepest roots and strongest foundation. The void isn't empty, it's filled with pure potentiality. It's not the absence of knowing, but the spaciousness that allows a higher order of knowing to emerge. In physics terms, this void resembles the quantum vacuum, not empty space but a plenum of potentiality from which all manifest reality emerges. Your nervous system, conditioned by evolution to seek certainty for survival, naturally resists this void. It sends signals of anxiety, doubt, or urgent pressure to escape the discomfort of not knowing. This explains why the experience of intuitive development, often includes periods of what feels like regression or loss of trust in your own perceptions. This isn't failure, it's a necessary recalibration as your system adjusts to a fundamentally different relationship with information and knowing. When you understand that this void is not only normal but essential to genuine intuitive development, you can approach it differently, not as a problem to solve but as a generative space to inhabit with conscious awareness. The most reliable indicator that your intuition is genuinely developing isn't the complete absence of doubt, but your changing relationship with uncertainty itself. Rather than experiencing uncertainty as threatening, you begin to recognize it as the open field of possibility from which your clearest knowing emerges. You become comfortable saying, "I don't know yet," without rushing to premature conclusions or seeking external confirmation before you've allowed your own knowing to fully form. There's a profound paradox at the heart of intuitive mastery. The more you develop this capacity, the less you experience it as separate from your ordinary awareness. Advanced intuition doesn't announce itself with dramatic psychic flashes or overwhelming sensations. It integrates so seamlessly with your perception that you simply know, without always being able to trace how you know. This integration represents the fulfillment of what quantum physics suggests about consciousness and reality. They are not separate phenomena but aspects of a unified field. Your intuition is not adding something foreign to your awareness. It's removing the artificial barriers between your consciousness and the intelligent field in which it exists. Think of a radio that's been gradually clearing static from its reception. At first, the moments of clear signal stand out dramatically against the background noise. But as the reception improves, clarity becomes the new normal, no longer remarkable for its contrast with interference, but simply the natural state of the system functioning as designed. This is why those with highly developed intuition often don't identify what they're experiencing as intuition at all. They've simply reclaimed the natural, unobstructed relationship between consciousness and information that is our original state. The three-level approach to quantum intuitive development provides a practical framework for navigating this territory. First, bodily attunement, the daily practice of conscious breathing that establishes coherence between your heart rhythm, nervous system, and brainwave patterns. This isn't merely relaxation, it's the creation of an optimal state for quantum reception. A simple practice of breathing in for 4 counts, holding for 4 counts, and releasing for 6 counts, repeated for just 3 minutes, creates measurable coherence in your electromagnetic field. This coherence isn't just a subjective experience. It represents a genuine shift in your physical system's receptivity to quantum information. Second, conscious reception, the practice of creating intentional space for intuitive information to reveal itself without interference. This isn't passive waiting but active allowing, maintaining alert awareness while suspending the analytical mind's tendency to immediately categorize, judge, or dismiss information that doesn't fit existing paradigms. This practice develops the neural pathways that allow intuitive signals to reach conscious awareness without being filtered out by habitual thinking patterns. Third, embodied action, taking small, consistent steps based on intuitive promptings, regardless of how subtle. This isn't blind faith but calibrated trust, beginning with low-stakes decisions and gradually expanding to more significant areas as your confidence in your intuitive accuracy grows. Each action taken from intuitive guidance, regardless of outcome, strengthens the connection between your intuitive knowing and physical reality. It's the difference between understanding vibration intellectually and actually becoming the tuning fork that resonates with the frequencies you seek to detect. The most profound transformation in intuitive development occurs not in how you receive information, but in your understanding of what information actually is. From the quantum perspective, information isn't just data about reality. It's a fundamental property of reality itself. The universe isn't made of separate objects that somehow communicate with each other across space. It's a unified information field temporarily appearing as separate objects, including the temporary appearance we call you. Your intuition isn't reaching out to access something separate from yourself. It's tuning into the information that you already are at your most fundamental level. This understanding resolves the false division between your intuition and external reality. They were never truly separate. The development of quantum intuition ultimately reveals that there is no boundary where your consciousness ends and the rest of reality begins. There is only the field, appearing in countless forms, communicating with itself across apparent divisions, that exist only from limited perspectives. When you fully embody this understanding, intuition is no longer a special ability but simply consciousness functioning naturally, without the artificial constraints imposed by limited identification and belief. The ultimate paradox of intuitive development is this: you don't need to become more intuitive. You need to stop being less intuitive than you naturally are. The caterpillar doesn't need special techniques to become a butterfly. It needs only to surrender to the transformative process already encoded in its being. If it tried to become a butterfly while maintaining its caterpillar structure, it would create only strain and frustration. Similarly, quantum intuition emerges not through adding special psychic abilities to your existing identity, but through allowing the dissolution of the barriers that have prevented your natural intuitive function from operating freely. As we complete this exploration together, I want to invite you into our growing community of conscious observers, those who are reclaiming their natural intuitive capacities and discovering the profound implications of the observer effect in their daily lives. Subscribe to continue this journey with us and tap the notification bell to join us for future explorations of consciousness, quantum reality, and the science of transformation. Share in the comments your own intuitive breakthrough moment, that time when you trusted a knowing that transcended logical understanding and discovered a truth that transformed your path. Your story may be exactly the confirmation another viewer needs to trust their own inner guidance. What aspect of quantum intuition would you like to explore more deeply in future videos? What challenges are you facing in your own intuitive development? Your questions and insights help shape the content we create, ensuring it serves your genuine evolution as a conscious observer in this remarkable field of infinite potential. Remember, the development of your intuitive capacity isn't just a personal enhancement, it's your contribution to the collective awakening of consciousness on our planet. Each individual who reclaims their direct connection to the quantum field accelerates the evolution of our shared reality. Until next time, trust the knowing that arrives before thought, honor the wisdom that speaks through feeling, and remember that you are not separate from the intelligence of the universe. You are that intelligence, experiencing itself through the unique perspective you call your life.